Okay, you probably just saw me stare blank-eyed. Sorry about that. I'm gonna have my Diet Coke. Okay, so Chester and me. It really was a very interesting dynamic. I told you about the overstimulation. One of our very first dates, we went to this local grocery store and we just walked up every single aisle and talked about anything that came to mind. But when we got there, I remember um, him talking about getting a drink, and we were in this section looking at the nakeds. And I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I don't know. I've never heard someone say the word, just like spell it, I guess, or read it, whatever. But I remember him asking me what flavor I wanted, and ever the people pleaser, I said whatever you want's fine. But he wouldn't take that for an answer. And so he kept pushing it, and eventually he said, "If you don't tell me what you want, I'm gonna sit on the ground and scream like a child." And I was like, "I'm not picking. I can't. Like, I don't care. I don't. Like, just pick something." Um, and then he sat on the ground in that grocery store and wailed like a child. Red flag. It should have been red flag. When we walked down the trail again, um, there was a spot where there was like a bridge, a very small bridge over a shallow pond, with no railings, and I had such intense anxiety that like I could barely crawl down the center of it, let alone rock around the side. And so he would grab my shoulders and like try to like push me, like jokingly. He wasn't actually gonna let me fall, I don't think, but he would just like jokingly push me towards the end of the pond to, I don't know, maybe try and get me over the anxiety or whatever. I don't fucking know. Um, and I want to preface by saying I don't think he's an evil person. I think he had good intentions. I think he wanted me to get over anxiety. I just think he didn't have the tools to do it correctly. I think we were very, very toxic for each other. We were not good for each other in any capacity. Um, and I noticed as time went on that I stopped being Taylor and I started becoming Chester's girlfriend. Um, I stopped doing my hobbies. I stopped reading. I stopped writing, really. Um, I would play Dungeons and Dragons with him because that's what he showed me. That's what he liked. I would watch anime with him, even though I don't like anime. Um, I just like completely changed my worldview and my thought processes and my preferences to align with what he wanted because I wanted him to love me. Trauma really makes a girl thirsty. I apologize. Also, I'm gonna not so cutely blow my nose. I'm sorry. I have fucking allergies, dude. It sucks. Anyway, um, and so I was just on this journey in life, um, and I was so lost on it. Like, didn't have, I lost myself so far along the way that I was just a walking potty. I was just a person to do whatever the fuck other people wanted me to do. Um, and that really hurt me. That really set a shitty foundation up for my life. And as time went on, with our dynamic with this, I want to preface by saying that Chester, he was going to college to be a lineman, I believe. No, it was an architect. It was a lineman at first, and then it was an architect to design buildings and stuff. And he was also a bodybuilder. And once again, I felt safer, um, because at least someone was under the guise of loving me the way I thought I needed to be loved. And I started crashing out again. Um, and things came to a head with school, and they came to a head with Chester, and they came to a head with my family. And at this point, the only emotions I knew were masked by anxiety and depression, and sometimes both. And so the self harming on my thighs stopped being enough. And I attempted to self-unalive, um, and I cut my wrists. And I did that in the bathtub, and I remember just staring at the open wounds on my wrist, sobbing, thinking like, what the fuck had I done? Um, and so I went to Chester and I begged him not to tell my family. But he had been living with me in my twin-sized bed since about a month after we started dating. Or not living with me, but staying with me, like, um, and after that, um, they took me to the emergency room, and my mother, my dad was so angry at me. He was so angry at me. Um, and that terrified me. But I had told my mother, and I realize now that I've skipped over that story, and I'm gonna tell you it next. But I told my mother, um, that I had been feeling suicidal and that I felt stuck and I didn't know what to do. Um, and instead of getting help, instead of getting medication, instead of going to do anything, um, I somehow left that hospital without any additional treatment other than bandaging my wrists. One of them was definitely worse than the other, though, because right hand dominant. But um, after that, Chester stopped working out and he dropped out of school to take care of me. And so it was a lot less at this point about how I actually felt and a lot more about knowing that he gave up his life for me and I owed him the world. I owed him everything. I owed him everything. Um, and I carried that with me. Even as he kept his part-time job, even though he wasn't going to school, working 15 hours a week. I did that even when I realized I had to get the fuck away from my mother and my brother, because Steve had already left long ago at this point. Um, I was working two jobs. I was a manager at one fast food restaurant, and I kept the first job at the fast food restaurant we had originally started working at together. Um, it was at this time. Um, I was working probably 60 to 70 hours a week for, I don't know why old time doesn't feel like it exists now. It's just like tangible memories in my head of feelings. And I remember getting the fuck out. I moved out when I was 17. We moved out together when I was 17. And I just remember getting so lonely and I was so overworked, guys. Like I was exhausted. My hair was falling out. I still have those varicose veins in my legs. My knees hurt. I'm 27, guys. Um, and I feel like that section of my life really wore on me. But I did it because I knew I owed him. I am going to tell the story about talking to my mother, and then I will continue this.